Thank you for joining this session. So today we're going to be talking about something that is quietly, but really completely actually reshaping how customers find businesses in general, maybe your business, maybe your customers in general, and more importantly, why brands are not ready for it. So let's start with, sorry, the clicker doesn't work. Sorry, 1 second, the clicker doesn't work. Ja, hat funktioniert und nee. Nee. Ja. Okay. Dankeschön. Sorry for that. All right, so let's start with a little reality check. For more than 20 years, search was really built around links. So people typed, they got a list, they got blue links, they open tabs, they open other tabs, they compare. And basically, as a brand, if you rank number one, then it was all good. You kind of won the game. Now, things are changing. We're moving from this kind of links search to answers. These answers are already given, right? So on the left, you can see a traditional search right there, where you'll just have a list. If I would be able to scroll here, you'd see other links, blue links that you can open in other tabs. And on the right, you can see the AI experience. So in this case, it's AI mode from Google. Obviously, it's the same experience with ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. And basically, what you're getting right there is directly recommendations. So this is kind of the old versus new. And because it's a new world, there are new challenges, obviously, which is good. Gives us all a little bit of work. And the new challenge is not how do I rank, but how do I get chosen in the end? So how do brands get chosen? So let's make this a little bit more concrete. All right, the purple square is supposed to be a little bit lower, but that's fine. I live in Berlin. I like to look for pizza. Obviously, I took the most basic search. Pizza in Berlin, best pizza, Gesundbrunnen, that's where I live. And yeah, on the left, you can see the traditional Google result. Seems okay. You know, you've got some reviews, you've got some pictures, you have an opening hours, you have all the nice data points that you need to basically make your choice. And on the right, you have the same query in ChatGPT, basically, but only one from the left list made it to the right. How come? Why? It's because on the right, you have a recommendation. So you have a choice that's already made. Basically, the AI bot is already making that choice for you. Now, GBP, so Google Business Profile, great. But on the right side, the three orange ones are invisible to AI. So they're doing what they need to do on Google, but they're not doing what they need to do to show up on ChatGPT. So Google Business Profile is still there. Local SEO is still there. All good. It's not going to move. Reviews, etc. We still need to do that. It's very important. But for a brand, they need to be understood by the AI and to get chosen and to basically appear in that search. Now, just a quick round. I can't see everyone, but could you please, this is a very basic question, could you please raise your hand if in the last, let's say, 30 days or 1 or 2 months, if you've used one of these AI platforms in general, right? I can see some hands, obviously all of the hands, perfect. Amazing, you look for a business, a service, whatever. Now keep it up if the information there that you saw was enough to make a choice. Right, okay, perfect, still a lot of hands. And now the last one is, most of you already work in the industry. You've seen, performance, clicks, conversions on Google and things like that. Maybe some of you have seen quite a little drop in the last months in performance, in clicks. Can I see some hands, exactly? Yep, exactly. That's the point. Users are not searching less. They're searching differently. People are still searching for businesses. It's just that it's different. That's it. So how do we track that? That's what we're going to be checking today. So we call it the collapse journey. You can see on the left, there's an animated little GIF here. You can see that was the journey before. There was, intent, search, clicks, comparison, visits, website visits, and then you decide. Today, AI is doing that work for you, for your brands, and it's basically giving that recommendation straight away. And so brands need to make it to that shortlist directly. There's no comparison, there's nothing. It's a bot that's basically doing the job that the user was doing before. So brands may not appear in that collapse journey. And that's where the competitive battle happens. It's basically in that pre-phase. The competition happens outside of the human clicking. Now, if the AI has not picked you, you're basically invisible in that journey. Maybe a little intro. My name's Sebastian. I work at Uberall. I live in Berlin. I lead the global solutions team. So basically my team is, we work with our strategic multi-location brands. And let's say that in the last 12 months, we've seen a shift that's happening, and we need to address that shift, obviously. So thank you for attending today, and thanks for the people following online. Let's kick it off with some local ranking factors. Maybe some of you already know this study. It's called the Whitespark study. And it's one of the key references on how local ranking is evolving. And previously, they were tracking local back maps and local organic. What we can see on the left, in local, you can see that GBP, so Google Business Profile signals, are #1. Now there's this new category that's showing up, which is AI search, obviously. And the #1 ranking factor there is on-page signals. On-page signals, websites, content, everything that you can put on a website, basically. Now, in the past, you could say that Google was enough. It's not true anymore, unfortunately. Websites, local pages, structured data with schema markups, with proper SEO markups, are becoming more and more important, and actually the most important when it comes to AI search. AI systems need evidence. They need proof. They need textual proof. They need structure. They need context. And that's the difference that we have right now a little bit with Google. Google is not leaving. It's staying, obviously, no problem. But AI systems, they need confidence. And that's gained with a lot of signals that's given through on-page signals. Still, Google is still in there. And we have review signals. We still have citation signals. There's all the rest. It's just that the order is different now. So what difference does it make locally? Well, localized content is the #1 difference. Hyperlocal content. Name, address, phone number is still there. It's still needed, but it's not enough. AI systems need more. They need services. They need products. They need frequently asked questions. They need dynamic data that's localized. If it's the same data across all the platforms, across all locations, then it doesn't make sense either. It has to be local. So websites is becoming kind of the proof of layer for AI systems. And that's where GEO comes into place, so Generative Engine Optimization. So not keyword stuffing, but brands need to build clear, consistent, and structured local proof. So is search becoming more complex? Yes, definitely, but it's fragmented, right? We still have the traditional search, still exists. People are still comparing, opening tabs, all good. We have conversational, so that's what's happening on these platforms. Fully fledged questions with a lot of context. You have transactional, basically it's AI bots making choices. Booking, that's kind of the future, that's where we're heading, the zero-click future, where bots are going to be clicking for you. And you have social search, that's TikTok, Instagram, communities. And AI does not live separately from all of this. It pulls signals from all of it. So it's not one is dead, the other is taking over. These four are still all happening, and AI systems basically live from it. So the future is really how to orchestrate these different ways of searching. So how do we manage all of this? That's why multi-location brands need to be visible where actually their customers are searching, whether it's on Google or on Bing in the normal search bar, or if it's on ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, etc. That's where brands need to have their strategy. And AI systems, they'll constantly cross-check all of these platforms and channels. So this is a small list, most important ones that we currently have in Europe, the usage, I'd say. But basically, AI is going to feed off of this to proof check the brand's credibility and the data. So Google shows what is closest and relevant. AI shows what is best, most verifiable. And AI is is a fact-checking machine. It's not a search engine. And it'll keep fact-checking. It's not because you got it done once that it's fine. It'll keep on fact-checking all the time. It's an engine, let's put it that way. That gives us a lot of opportunity. Gives a lot of brands opportunity to show up. Still, there are too many brands that are still missing from AI conversations. You can see it's 68%. Too many face negative sentiment. Too many have inconsistent name, address, and phone numbers across their channels. And basically all these brands, they suffer from errors and misstatements. It's the worst situation, being misstated in an AI response. It's the worst. Now, AI systems aren't perfect, but it's only as good as the signals can access, right? So if the data is not accessible, you can't get that data. So brands, us, you, need to put that data in the right spot so AI systems can pull from it and live off it. So brands really need to take control of these signals. So where to now? Well, first of all, don't panic. There's a solution. There are tools. It's not doomsday. It's not about chasing every new AI tool. But brands need a structured approach. That's what we're going to be outlining. But that's also what you all have on your little piece of paper at the back that you can bring back afterwards, obviously. So one question for you, no need to answer now, but maybe you can scan this. That's the starting point, is how mature is your local presence for the new world? Now, if you'd like to assess basically where you stand or where your customers stand, where your brand stands in general, you can scan this and we'll reach out and we'll give you an assessment, a report on how you currently perform. The idea is really to give you some strengths, some gaps, understand how your local page is, if there is one, understand what just in general, how your visibility looks like. And we'll provide a thorough analysis. So, how to win? Well, at Uberall, we've identified 3 main pillars. We have the source of truth. That's point of interest data, so name, address, phone number, etc. Services. All of this, first of all, needs to be under control. Then we have context engineering. That's basically creating the right local content at the right moment to basically get the AI to understand the relevance of that data. And then we have orchestration. One of them, obviously the most important one because it's the last one, but basically it's teams and technologies and workflows that need to align and work together. It's not siloed. It's a whole approach. It's a whole strategy that everyone needs to work, everything and everyone needs to work together. So the source of truth, it's the foundation, basically. May sound boring, but in the AI world, it becomes incredibly powerful. Just getting the basics straight. Talking about structured data, name, phone hours, etc. I've said it enough, I know, I repeat, but it's very, very important. There's nothing worse than seeing one information on a website, an opening hour, and seeing another information on Google, and then there's a customer that shows up, sees that the shop is closed. That's a frustrated customer, that's a bad review, that's a bad experience. Context engineering, that's where basically brands can defer from most of the others, obviously, but basically AI needs context. You have to think of it that one answer to one query in Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever is around 10, 16 sources. So how can you influence those 10, 16 sources to be chosen right there? So context tells why this brand is the right recommendation for that answer that Gemini or ChatGPT is going to give. So basically, brands need to produce the right signals. For example, let's say a hotel has early check-in, what needs to show up on the website. Let's say it has a vegan brunch, needs to show up on the website. There's an EV charging station, needs to show up on the website. That's local dynamic data that can change over time, but that'll get you picked. That'll get your brands or your customers picked over the other ones. Then we have orchestration. That's a real struggle, really, real struggle. Getting technologies and teams to work together, aligned regularly, real struggle. But there is a solution to it. Teams are usually a little bit too siloed. And you have the SEO team that's going to be in charge of ranking. Then you'll have the content team that's in charge of the website. Then you have the social team that's in charge of posts. But all these teams need to work together and they need to align. AI doesn't really care about the organizational chart and the issues that are internal to a company. It needs that orchestration to work together for it to then choose the right response. So teams usually need to work more horizontally than vertically. This is also where we see more agentic come into play, where things can be connected with agents, but I'm not going to go too much in depth there today. So this is the 90-day routine that your customers can already do. It's for free, it's right there. There's more on the piece of paper that you have. But basically, it's split in 4 phases. There's the first one, there's identifying the presence. That's basically just, understanding how the business shows up, type a few queries on different platforms, understand where the AI is picking up the data, understand the sources, understand the responses, identify the gaps, basically. Then you have, from day 7 to day 30, that's addressing the gaps. That's actually producing content, fixing data, improving the local page, things like that. So doing all of these little adjustments that will make sure that the AI will choose your brand. Then we have day 30 to 60. That's what we call surgical placement. You're basically reverse engineering the sites. So you want to target high cited websites, so basically the sources, and you want to try to produce similar content, try to understand why that source was chosen over another one, and then produce it yourself for the query, for the AI bot to come and pick it up. Then we have the last bit, it's iterate and compound, because it's not a one-off. It's really tracking, monitoring, and repeating. So let's go a little bit more in depth. Identify where you stand. So most brands actually skip this part. They want to straight away go to the content bit. There's no point doing the content bit when you don't know, first of all, where are the gaps, right? So check the main platforms, the prompts, check for several locations. If you have very large networks, check for your flagship stores, check your most important verticals, your most important region, and then apply to the rest. Where are you recommended? Where are you absent? Do that analysis, and then you can go to phase 2. That's where you address the content gaps, basically. So you need to understand why, basically, you're not showing up in those responses. Is the local page too thin? Are you missing some schema markups? Are you missing some hyperdynamic content? Are you missing some frequently asked questions? Things like that. Is the service unclear? Usually what really works in terms of websites is fully fledged questions and the fully fledged response. That's an amazing information for an AI to pick up. And then create the targeted content, basically. So if it works, scale it. And then phase 3, that's where surgical placement comes into play. You're basically reverse engineering citations. You check the sources instead of guessing. There's no point guessing, the data is there. When you look on ChatGPT and Gemini, you can see where it's picking up the responses. Get those URLs, check the content yourself, and see what you can do as well. You can usually, there are kind of long tail directories that we call that can get interesting. It's like blogs, smaller, more specific sources, communities, things like that. There's no point going into the very expensive, sometimes directories. Even sometimes the smallest local blogs can be picked up for information. Niche directories, review sites, local press, things like that. And obviously it might even be cheaper to push content to those ones than to the large ones that we know. Obviously, all of them is better. Phase 4, iterate and compound. Having an AI strategy is not static. Again, it's not a one-off. It's something that you repeat, you continue. Why? Well, simply because it's going so fast. 2 years ago, we weren't where we were today. Models are changing, sources are changing, the competition is changing, and customers are changing. So all of this needs to be readapted constantly. So you need kind of an ongoing loop to address it. You want to measure the impact, and that's where new KPIs come into play. We talk about share of voice. We talk about citation rates, mention rate, things like that. So it's not one campaign. It's really it's a compounding engine. So get cited, get trusted, and get ahead of the competition. That's what the brands can do. If you or your brands, your customers do this well, you should aim for these kind of results. You can increase your share of voice by more than 10%. You can increase your brand sentiment and your citation rate. You can double it easily, especially if you're not doing anything right now. These metrics are very, very much achievable. And you can go 3 to 9 times higher in terms of conversions. Now, at Uberall, we've been applying this. And obviously, we don't want to show another company as well, but we will show what we did, because we applied this, and we like to, like my CMO always say, we like to drink our own champagne. So here are the beginning of the results. I'll just go through how we track this, basically, but what you can see here is what we call Geo Studio, and this is where basically we can measure our share of voice. You can see it here. We have a 20% share of voice at the top. We have on the right that share of voice per model. And I'm not going to do a full platform demo, but the idea is to understand brand sentiment, citation rate, mention rate, all of this into one dashboard, and understand how basically AI models are feeding back information for prompts. This is based on 1,900 responses received that the tool has questions. So basically the tool has sent out prompts, it analyzed all of the responses and gave us this dashboard. Then we generated the right content. What you can see here is basically what we call mention gaps. So where we have gaps, you can see for the first one, how do multi-location brands manage geo? So for that prompt, we have a 30% mention gap. What are we going to do? We're going to write content on multi-location brands, basically, and fill that gap. Exactly the same for best geo strategy for enterprise brands. There's a 5% mention gap, not too bad, but still, we can optimize that, and we can write content for it. So we're checking out all of these prompts and all of the responses, all the gaps, creating the content that we can also do with the tool, and then pushing it back out, whether it's on our website or on other channels. These are the links, basically, that we analyzed. And we want to target those sites, obviously. So we want to understand why we showed up in this, so we can reinforce it even more. And we want to also understand if our competition is mentioned there as well. Why is our competition mentioned more? Why is it mentioned less? Etc. So we want to target those sites, produce more content for these sites. And by doing this strategy, this is what we achieved in 3 months. 17% share of voice in AI search in 3 months. So basically gaining market share. We actually signed a customer lately that found us on one of those models. We have 10% more mention rate in 3 months. That means that our brand features more, let's say, more prominently. And we have 3 times more citation rate. So mention rate is the actual mention of Uberall, and citation is the website, it's the URL. So Uberall is becoming a trusted source, basically, for the LLMs, and that's continuing. We're continuing, we're doing that all the time. Thank you very much for listening up today for this last session. And yeah, I'm happy to get some questions if you want. There's a microphone that I can give if anyone has some questions. Or you can also come to me. Yep, question. Now, just a second, because I need to put the headphone. It's not. No, I can't hear you.
Anyway.
Your microphone?
No? No. Yes? Yeah, all right. Then the question is, how do you see the difference? Because this is like for your SaaS tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see it any different when you track something for local instances? Because I mean, this is very much similar to like the peak, the profounds, prompt monitoring, but I would be very interested in how is it different in your view for local instances, because we need to have exactly that, but for our stores, not for our tool, right?
Great question. We can actually drill down to the location on the tool. And so that's the difference of the tool that we have, is that we can go down on location based. I didn't do a full demo, but there's a part where basically you can go down to the city, to the location. And we applied the same methodology because we have locations in Berlin, in Paris, in England, in North America. So we have a couple of locations, and that's how we applied that strategy. So we can produce hyperlocal content as well, and we can measure it as well on a local base.
So how can you verify that the prompts you're using for the testing are the right ones? So that's not like in Google where it says your brand is mentioned with these keywords. So how do you know which prompts to test, how you rank in these prompts?
So when you connect to the platform, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. When you connect to the platform, the tool will automatically generate prompts for you based on your industry, based on your vertical, based on these things. So it'll already set up a few prompts, and then you can manually put in the prompts that you have. So you can generate a bunch of prompts, put them in the tool. The tool also generates some, and then basically you know which prompt works or not. Let's say you do a prompt, you get a response, you'll see the full response, all of the sources, all of the keywords, if the competition is mentioned, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what's feeding the dashboard, the share of voice, citation rate, the mention rate.
But it is only an assumption of prompts. You assumed that people would prompt, and not what people are actually prompting.
Yeah, so it's assumptions. It's a great call. The tool will make assumptions, but usually you know as well your business, how you're being found as well. And yeah, I would say that's for you to define exactly which type of prompts, how you're being found, et cetera, to put in the tool. And obviously, you know, there's always a support team to help on those things. But yeah, the tool will generate based on your industry, your category, your vertical, your country, your language. It'll make the hardest work in the beginning. And then you can refine, add some more.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
How come there are that big differences between the models? I think, not sure if it was Claude versus Gemini, but it was 100% more relative uplift in voice of share. Where does this result from?
So why the share of voice was different?
Yeah, and that much different.
Oh, that much difference. So in this instance, let me go back. You mean here on the right?
Yeah, exactly. Gemini versus Claude is like 15 versus 30% share of voice.
So that's the full quantity, and the share of voice is a little bit lower on those ones. That means that we need to readapt our strategy for where Google is picking up the data. So then we would go down the Gemini route, let's say, see the prompts that were fed there, see the responses that Gemini is taking, and readapting some strategy to feed that as well. The how come is behind the algorithm of the of the AI, which is a little bit difficult to understand, but you can influence it basically there. But that's a perfect question, because that's exactly what will make you focus more maybe on this type than the other one.
Thank you for the presentation, and I have a simple question. So, do you observe any differences between business have been founded for decades, they have the information data on the internet everywhere already, compared to, for example, a startup founded like last year and go through all the same process, and how is the performance or the increase of share of voice? Do you voice of shares?
Yeah, no worries. So basically the question is if there's a difference between older businesses that have been doing that since ages and the new ones that are basically implementing the strategy just recently.
Or startup founded last year, they don't have any voice on the internet and they are just new.
Yep.
And maybe the language model already learned a lot from the big business, and they already have so much data learned by the model already. And how can, is this any difference on the we go through the same process for big brands and small brands, and you gave the increase of the share of voice?
Share of voice, yep.
18%
yes,
raise?
Correct.
And that is overall for big brands, small brands?
That was just for us. So that was just for Uberall. This is basically us applying the strategy that I outlined for our business. Whether you're an old business or a recent one, the methodology is the same. And again, it's not a one-off, because if a business has been doing this, well, 10 years ago there was no AI and all that, but let's say they were doing local SEO focusing, still today they need to re-implement all of these strategies. It's a loop. It's not a one-off. So recent or old, you still need to be continuing doing it all the time, all the time, all the time. That's the key to it as well. And this share of voice is a new metric, basically, that's showing up for these platforms, is basically how, I like to say, how loud are you on these platforms, basically.
And what is the a baseline of it? For example, I have a startup, and we are not recommended by the LM at all, and we have 0 share of voice. And how do we compare it? And
so I think the baseline is 0 in this case. So that's great, because you can only increase, I guess. It really depends on the industry, the vertical. A burger place will not have the same share of voice than let's say, an insurance company. Sometimes the usage of AI will be for comparison, things like that. So let's say I am looking for a new insurance. I'm going to go on a platform. I'm going to want to compare a lot of different insurances. So obviously it's going to go pick up insurances, historical ones that exist. The newest one maybe need to be a little bit louder and be more on socials, be more on channels, do more posting, produce more content, more websites. That's why SEO is not dead. You still need to do SEO. You still need to do local SEO. It's just that you need to continue to get picked up there.
Thank you.
No worries.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry.
All right,
just a second.
So it might be just a stupid question because I'm not of the industry, but I'm just wondering how our opponent essentially does the collecting, how does it gather data, how does it evaluate data, how does it maintain indices or any semantic knowledge? It collects of the business, how does it evaluate trust? This sounds pretty much like the old SEO part worked as well, right? Pretty much?
It does. It really does. That's why SEO is not dead. And so the question is, how do you... Can you repeat exactly the question? I'm not sure I understood.
I'm just curious who does the collecting? Does Google does it, or does OpenAI does it by themselves to build indices, to build any directory? Because they don't start searching when you ask the question, right? What do they do?
How the LLMs pick up the data.
It's LLM and also the entire service like ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. So the LLMs, when I say LLMs, it's ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc. And so they just crawl the internet. So they just go check what's available. And that's why websites become the most prominent ranking factor, because that's the first layer of proof for a business. It's the website, right? That is the number one thing that basically defines a business, is it has a website, has a physical location. So it's going to go on the website, it's going to check the information. It's going to go on the socials, it's going to check. It's going to crawl basically everything that's available, if there are local press, whatever. So it's basically SEO, and it's picking up that data, and it's analyzing and giving an answer to the user. So it's crawling, just like...
Pretty much the same, but maybe less manipulated by
Exactly.
SEO, but needs to be more like a human would do his
Yeah,
due
exactly.
diligence.
1,000,000 times faster. I think there are 2 questions over there.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
So, from your experience, do you think that brands or companies which limited presence online, for example, only with a website and LinkedIn, have this kind of limitation to be ranked 1 or 2 or 3 on the LLMs compared to maybe other brands or companies with presence overall, like Instagram, social media, TikTok, like everywhere?
It's a good question, and it really depends on what you're selling as a brand and what that brand is selling. If it's niche, it's going to get picked up. If it's something that has a lot of competition, that's very highly competitive, then you also need to check what the competition is doing and doing more. It really depends on the business, on the vertical. It's not a yes or no, a question, I guess. It's if you're selling something unique that you're basically the only one that does it, then you have a higher chance to be picked up. Still, you still need a strategy to get that information picked up by LLMs. But if you have a lot of competition, then I would also check what the competition is doing. But you can do also more to get picked up. And so it's also that analysis. It's really the beginning, the first 7 days where I was just saying getting the basics done, name, address, phone number, opening hours, nice pictures, just a nice structure. First of all, get that foundation done. Check the gaps that you have on the platforms, and then roll out the rest of the strategy.
Thank you.
No worries. There was a question over there.
I was wondering, you were talking about best practices, how for like different locations, how you can structure the data. I was wondering if there are any best practices how to do that for like a lot of different stores. Are there different practices on how to structure it on your website so it's more machine readable than you would do for a human that goes to the website, or how you would do like opening hours for 1,000 different stores, or availability for products across 1,000 different stores? Because you talked about you should write out questions like, when is my store open in Manchester? But how would you do this on a like scalable way?
Well, great question, and it's a good thing I work at Uberall, how we support our businesses doing this. Basically, so we have a tool as well to help customers do this, where you can change opening hours at scale on 1,000 locations at a time. You can create content, hyperlocal content, with one single text, but with dynamic placeholders that will be pushed out to your 1,000 locations. You can create a store locator, and whether it's with us or not, it's also something that we advise, is having, for example, a store locator. So it's a map with all of the pins on it, and under every pin, there's a location page that's structured with schema markups. So all of the SEO classic stuff that you need to do with content, hyperlocal content, frequently asked questions, pictures, services, payment methods, everything that deserves on that needs to be on that location page, and that's readable. So there are tools like us that help you do that at scale. You have to imagine the big, large chain of hotels that has 5,000 locations. It can't go in each single location to make that adjustment. So it needs a tool to work at scale.
Okay, thank you.
So there are LLMs that now have memory, and how does the result in terms of the prompt, taking into account the memory of the individual, is catered for in your solution for the localized store, for example?
So the prompts that the tool sends out doesn't have the
individualized
information.
memory,
Unfortunately, maybe that's the gap. Maybe that's something in the future that will be solved. But that is the limitation to a machine pinging another machine, obviously. But still, it can mimic how it writes, obviously. And then in the end, it's really the end user when they ask their question. Obviously, the response will be partly based on their own, preferences, obviously. But in the end, the question will have a bunch of information and context that is required to get a response. So obviously, when our tool pings, the API of ChatGPT or Gemini, then it doesn't have that, background information. But still, still works, obviously.
Question about you mentioned a time frame in your face model, saying like going from 0 to day 90. What determines the time frame? Is this is this a time it takes for any manipulation to bubble up and have effect on the LLM search, or is this just due to a business model that you don't have that many searches for this?
So, good question. So this is something that we've seen basically is the good time frame to get things in place, but also because of the nature of each step it doesn't require more or less time. Let's get the first phase in 1 week. It's done.
Yeah.
Checking name, phone hours, etc. So that's done. But then there are some other phases that require a little bit more time. Addressing gaps means producing content. Producing content, takes a little bit of time. It's not a 2-day.
Mostly the digestion into the machine, so that
also,
at some point your content is more relevant than any
Yep.
other body else's content.
Exactly, and then afterwards, the placement and the iterate and compound. It's because you also want to see the results. You want to see what's happening over time and not just overnight, basically.
So this is also like a time frame to set to be realistic and not
Yep,
to be disappointed
exactly.
once.
It's realistic. We don't want to say that buy a tool like ours and then after tomorrow you're good to go. It's also something that's done on the long run because you need it needs to be fed with results. Okay. Another question there.
Hi, just a simple question. How do you earn money and what are the determinations of the costs?
So, us?
Yes.
Oh. So our business model is location-based. Depends on the number of locations, depends on the packages. That's a great conversation that we can have after this
All right,
after this talk. If you want, we have a bunch of sales reps right there with us. If you want, we can take this afterwards.
All right, we do that.
Perfect. Thank you very much for attending today. And enjoy the rest of the show. And thank you online.